This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Cooking with Grief, your favourite internet fact-based comedy podcast. My name's Chris and I'm wearing slippers. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, who's also called Chris.
Who is also wearing slippers.
Excellent! It's like we've got a uniform, apart from they're not branded.
Well, mine are. I'll send you the new ream of merch in soon enough. Out of curiosity, what else you're wearing, just to see how well we match up.
Oh, it's just slippers.
Alright, same, yeah.
No, otherwise I'm wearing jeans and a nice warm jumper because it's a bit chilly today.
Yeah, I'm sporting a dark navy turtleneck.
Oh, the turtleneck, eh?
Well, you know, this is a sophisticated podcast, you know. Also, it's just the warmest thing I own, so just that and the slippers. I'm sort of Winnie the Poohing it, but at home.
And with that image, let's carry on.
Happy New Year, by the way, listeners.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year. Yep, welcome to the future, I guess. It's been a bit of a quiet week.
At the time of recording, everything was falling apart.
Yeah, by the time you listen to this, I mean, you may be listening to this on the emergency service radio.
In which case, that's very poor booking. People need directions to shelter, water.
Unless we've led a coup. We've taken over.
Oh yeah, what's your political party? The Northern Separatists?
Oh, Northern Independence Party.
Oh yeah, that's it, yeah. Greater Manchester and Liverpool have struck out on their own.
Welcome aboard, whether you wanted to or not. Now I'm saying the North should declare independence from the rest of England and then should immediately launch an invasion of the South.
Oh yeah. We're
it's
good
the last thing they'd see coming. They'd be like, oh, they finally got independence. I guess that's them sorted. And then immediately just hordes of flat cap wearing marauders streaming over the border into Birmingham in the south.
Unleash the battle whippet.
Now that we've got our invasion plans out of the way, so the way this podcast works is we bring you two real and interesting facts. Whilst we do like to make up some nonsense, we can assure you that all our facts are genuine. And neither of us have heard what the other's facts are, so you'll be as surprised as 50% of the podcast is at any given time.
Sometimes more, depending on how thorough our research is.
Or weirdly, sometimes less.
Yeah, I tend to edit out the ones where I go, did you know this thing? And you go, yes. And then it just ends.
And on that note then, what's your first topic?
So, for my first topic, I thought I'd talk about something that happened last year that maybe slipped through the cracks. Now, 2020 was, I think it's fair to say, a bad year for everyone collectively, and me personally. I really tried to work on my own vaccine, mostly just sort of chucking bath bombs in the bath because people like bath bombs. And unfortunately, I got the results back, and it was 0% effective. Which, not gonna lie, it was a disappointing end to a disappointing year. But I found a story that might be of some interest to you that, like, on any other year would have made like much bigger news. Dinosaurs are coming back.
They are?
Yeah. So basically,
Where?
Just all over.
Oh. Just can't move the dinosaurs.
Yeah, from on land, in the sea, in the sky, but now in space. No, so they found intact dinosaur DNA is a pretty big find.
I was going to say, that sounds like the plot of a well-known movie.
Oh, I may have confused. No, look, thankfully, my complete, appalling sort of lack of pop culture means that not only have I not seen that, but that's not what I'm referring to. Maybe I have. I don't know.
I feel like you have. It's on every year.
Maybe I saw it as a kid, but anyway. So the problem with you find fossils and that all over the gaff.
Again, you're making it sound, I mean, I know you do, but you're making it sound like you just walk down the street and there's one, just fossils everywhere. Just piss off with the fossils.
Sifting through, yeah, okay, maybe not. I don't mean it sound like, it's not like fly tipping. Fossils are regularly found, like DNA starts to decay at death, and findings from a 2012 study on moa bones showed that like genetic material deteriorates, that it halves itself every 512 years.
Did you say a moa?
Yes.
Is that giant bird?
I thought it was a giant snake, but hang on.
Oh, it could be. I don't know. I thought there's a giant bird in
moa.
It used to live in.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I might be wrong.
Yeah, a species of now extinct flightless birds endemic to New Zealand.
Yeah, I was going to say in New Zealand. I think they were literally man-sized killer ostrich things. It's just wow, New Zealand used to be terrifying.
Nearly 4 meters in height and weighed about 230 kilos. So I could lift it up if it was equally weighted along a bar. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Yeah. So giant bird bones. So the rate that it decomposes means that you could only find, realistically, DNA sequences from creatures that died 6.8 million years ago, which is obviously way after dinosaurs. But last year, a paleontologist called Alida Bayerl and her colleagues at the Chinese Academy of Sciences found a Hypercrosaurus cartilage, which came from the skull of a baby. It's called a hadrosaur, and it's from 70 million years ago. But it's got intact remnants of the DNA, which is pretty cool. And if 2020 taught us nothing, or anything even, that we will definitely try and bring dinosaurs back.
You said that the DNA decays and that's why you can't do anything with it. Why is this one not decay? How is this 70 million years? Because you said it was 6 million years ago was sort of the hard limit. So how have they found? I don't expect a fully detailed scientific answer because A, I assume you don't know it, and B, I wouldn't understand it. But was it preserved in something, or was it?
It was in a box actually. It was in a sealed presentation case.
Kept in the fridge.
Yeah.
60 million years.
Yeah. I, as predicted, I don't know, but I would. I reckon. Like you say, amber or tar or. Oh, it's just a really good one.
Just a good one.
Yeah, just an absolute cracking one. He says, buying time while he scans through the article to try and...
So, alright, so next question then. So, do you say it was Chinese researchers?
Yep, or at least people working for the Chinese Academy of Sciences.
Have they indicated that they intend to... not to be generalising and stuff, but I wouldn't put it past the Chinese Academy of Science to attempt to recreate dinosaurs.
And could you blame them? Really? No matter how foolproof you think your dinosaur containment area is. Also, my understanding of science is so poor that I assume there's a scanner and it a bit like the Fly, and it goes boo, 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 and then the 3D prints a live T-Rex, regardless of whatever it's scanned.
Why not at this stage? To be fair, I learnt it all from Jurassic Park, so I could give you a detailed explanation of how it works, assuming that Jurassic Park wasn't full of shit.
The practical effects still hold up, so I can't see why the science wouldn't.
There's been, I think, 5 Jurassic Park films. Jurassic Park as a concept, as in the in-universe concept, has been such a monumental failure. Let me just take you through, right?
Okay.
They've attempted throughout the films, and minor spoilers, I guess, but if this didn't happen, then there wouldn't be a film, because it'd just be people go to the dinosaur zoo, have a nice time, go home.
Via the gift shop.
Yeah. First attempt, it failed and the dinosaurs all escaped before they even managed to, before open day. Basically, they were beta testing it, and it all went tits up, and the dinosaurs escaped and ate everyone. So, attempt 1 failed. Attempt 2, they tried to do it. Having seen it fail massively and the dinosaurs ate everyone on a remote island, they were like, oh yeah, let's bring the dinosaurs to San Diego and open Jurassic Park 2 in San Diego. Again, before it even gets opened, like literally just transporting the dinosaurs to San Diego in the first place. The T-Rex escapes and kills everybody and goes on a rampage through San Diego. So we're 0 for 2 now. We've yet to even reach opening day on either park. Third attempt, they reboot it in Jurassic World. It's apparently very successful. So for once, they've got a park that's working like Disneyland. Then, for reasons which make no sense, they decide to weaponize dinosaurs, because apparently there's more money to be made from weaponized velociraptors than there are, like, having a park and everything. And to that I just say, like, have you seen how rich Disney is? And then all the dinosaurs escape and kill everyone again. As a concept, I think you just have to admit that a Jurassic Park isn't going to work.
In the last one, hadn't they trained velociraptors to use, like, laser guns or something?
Something like that.
That seems outlandish.
It wasn't laser guns. I think they had things on them that you can, like, make them follow or something like that. So you can direct them. It was very ridiculous.
What, like cats?
Yeah, just stick a laser pen on the head and they'll just keep going in a straight line. Never quite reaching it.
So good idea, bad idea, fun idea from
excellent
afar.
idea.
Oh, excellent.
I'd go.
I found the bit of the article that explains how the DNA's been preserved, if you still care.
Oh, that's good. We've stalled for enough time now.
Yeah, thanks. Not going to lie, I'm very quiet during the part where you explain the plots of all 5 Jurassic Parks. I'm not going to see the films, it's fine, I'm just going to carry on reading. So, within the bone, they found DNA from bacteria that had been living in there, but like they worked out that the genetic material that had formed with the bacteria belonged to the dinosaur, not the bacteria.
Oh, that's good then.
There you go.
There we go.
Because bacteria could have survived, like, because it sort of, bacteria survived the fossilization process.
Well, there we go.
Phew.
So now we just have to wait for China to... And to be fair, at the rate China seems to get things done, again, questionable safety policies and all that. So let's be honest, like, again, don't mean to generalise, but, you know, like, you've been to a Chinese zoo. Like, from the stories you told me, I think you showed me a picture as well, like, they wouldn't have been able to have a zoo like that in England.
No, so for example, they put live chickens in with the monkeys just for the monkeys to play with, which seems cruel in a way that we...
Didn't you say you could, like, pay to feed the chickens to, like, animals or something?
Oh, that was that was slightly different. So that was in a Siberian tiger sanctuary. That's more like it helps them hunt and fight and kill things. So you can, it's, you know, you pay to get in, and then you're up in the trees and stuff, like on these walkways, and you can like watch, you know, them like hunt and eat and like be taken care of and stuff. Or you can pay a bit more to like drop meat or like live animals in. So it's slightly different because that was more like a nature preservation place because they're endangered.
Rather than a zoo.
Yeah, not just like punting chickens. But yeah, like that when it comes to animals and stuff. It's like this part, like the touristy parts of the Great Wall, there's just like enclosures with bears and you can pay to feed the bears, and it's like, was the Great Wall not impressive enough? I know this is the bit that was built in the 70s, but still, like, this is you've got a wonder of the world, you don't need to spice it up with bears. It'd be like outside Buckingham Palace we also had like a circus. You know, just like in case you get bored of this iconic, you know. But I don't know. So
but yeah, like I say, so the standards of safety and stuff might not be like what we'd consider acceptable in, you know, Europe or the West or whatever. But on the other hand, you got to say China does get things done.
Yeah.
Like those cities that they built, like, you know, like those pictures where it shows like a desert and then like 10 years later and it's like a city of like 2 million people with like skyscrapers and stuff. Like, you gotta admit, when China says they're gonna get something done in like a short amount of time, it gets done.
I mean, it's the benefit of not like short-term electionism with like politicians. So instead of like serving for 5 years and spend more time getting re-elected than I do serving, they go, right, okay, one leader for life, that's sorted. Well, it's you can plan 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead. So China's thinking big picture, and we're like, every 4 years there must be an election.
It's that thing, isn't it? It's like, the The good things with dictatorships is that, like, you know, when they put their mind to it, they get shit done. The downside is, if that shit that they're getting done is absolutely horrific, there's nothing anybody can do to stop it.
Yeah, and sometimes both.
Or sometimes not even horrific, sometimes just stupid. It's stupid and counterproductive. There's not a single thing anyone can do to stop it.
Yeah, a lot of giant portraits of dictators, but, you know, you never hear from the artists anymore, so...
Make of that what you will.
What a balanced approach to dictatorship. Never mind the prisoner camps in Xinjiang. God, they can build a building.
Well, again, you know, that is exactly it, actually.
Yeah.
That sums it all up. On the one hand, imagine how long it takes, like, Western countries to build a new prison, and, you know, and then they go through the whole thing, or prison reform, you know, whether or not prisons work, because we, like in Britain, we've had come up with things where it's like, you know, there's debates about the prison system and the courts and the backlog and all that, and whether or not we need more prisons or court reform or what to, like, sort it all out and everything. Whereas China builds these prisons in, like, you know, a few weeks, and they built, like, massive prisons. The downside is, the people going into these prisons have literally no say. Well, not no say, I guess prisons never have no say.
I object!
You know what I mean? Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, most cases, probably not committed even, like, the hint of a crime.
Nope, they're just riding
whatever,
out,
you know,
like, ethnic minorities, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, well, we don't like the race you happen to belong to. Off you go. I was like, oh, you live in this town? Well, we've declared this entire town traitors, so in you go.
What a lovely portrait, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Dictatorships. Put to bed.
You know, the BBC is all about balance. We are taking it to a new extreme, especially in a topic about dinosaurs.
Well, right. Well, I guess the only way we're going to really settle this matter is we're going to have to find some dinosaur DNA and give it to America, and some dinosaur DNA and give it to China, and we'll see who comes out with the best Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll set it up. I'll speak with the
and
Chinese.
Whichever one wins, we go with that.
That
we
model,
go with that method of of leadership and political structure for the rest of time.
I can't see anything going wrong. So that's the end of my first topic. Chris, what have you got for your first one of 2021?
Well, funny you should say that, actually. Because...
Thanks.
Well... and stop. No, so, like, as you just mentioned then, this is our first episode of 2021. But what if I told you that, according to some conspiracy theorists, which again, very on brand for 2020 and 2021, what if I told you that they believe the year is actually 1724?
I'd just go on with my life, I guess.
I mean, I suppose so.
I mean, as will everyone else. Like, I mean, I'm sure this particular story will, you know, reveal rich, you know, like narrative rewards. But just how many times throughout history have people claimed that the world's going to end and then it didn't, and then life carried on, and oh no, they got the year wrong, or the year isn't really what it's supposed to be, or oh, it was the Mayan calendar or the Jewish calendar, or anyway.
Well, now that you shit all over my topic, thank you.
Yeah, now that I've been entirely dismissive of what you're about to say.
Well, it's called the Phantom Time Hypothesis by Heribert Illig, a German historian. I'm going to use historian in the loosest possible sense. A man who's aware that history is a thing. And we'll leave it at that.
Okay, he's a historian the way that we are historians.
Yes. In fact, probably worse. But anyway,
okay,
his theory, which he proposed back in 1991. Obviously, he doesn't write it down that way. It's hard to know where to start. But basically, he reckons that because the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, he began his reign, as we understand it, in the year 1000 AD. But Otto claims that he actually did it in the year 996 rather than 1000, and and that between him, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII, and Pope Sylvester II all got together and changed it to make it seem like it happened in the year 1000 because that sounds better and more impressive than 996. It's like, oh yeah, the year 1000. So then he basically says that the reason for this, or one of the reasons for this, is that, like when we went from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, and they had to do a bit of a, when they added leap years and stuff. It's why Russian celebrates because Russia still used the Julian calendar until like the 20th century, which is the old style, which is why they celebrate the October Revolution. The anniversary of the October Revolution happens every November because it happened in October in the Julian calendar, and then they switched. So basically, like, you got this discrepancy, and the way they decided what year it was and what day it was and all that was they had to take into account leap years. For some reason, Illig reckons that they added an extra 3 centuries to add the leap years when these popes and Pope and emperors all got together. And yeah, he basically reckons they then made up 297 years of history, including the Emperor Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor Empire, who was a kind of a big deal. He reckons he didn't happen. Reckons they just came up with all these different, just basically wrote fan fiction. He basically reckons the Pope and 2 emperors got together and wrote 300 years worth of fan fiction, all to trick people into thinking that it was the year 1000.
Yeah, I mean, they lost me there slightly. Like, it is totally conceivable to me that you could just add on a few years and just not claim that those years never happened, but just that you're rebranding it as year 1000.
That would probably be easier. But
to go, no, those years took place, and this is all the stuff that happened in them, and the people that were born and died in them, and now it's the year 1000. It seems like so much extra work.
Yeah, you'd think so. Because basically, he reckons that because there isn't much there's relatively little evidence about those years. He says the years he particularly focuses on 614 to 911. The years he reckons were all made up. He says basically that there isn't, there's not a lot of archaeological or historical evidence about those time periods, so he reckons it was all made up. And it's like, well, maybe, but then things still happened in other countries. All right, so the Pope made up these 297 years. Apart from then, why would that also line up with obviously different countries and different regions use we're counting from different year zeros or whatever, but historians can still go and match up and be like, all right, so that happened in the year of this, and okay, that happened there. They weren't like, oh, it's not like everybody just missed out 300 years of history.
Why would you add the years on there as well? Why not stick them on way back in the past and call it a miscount?
Yeah, why not just say Jesus was born a few years earlier than anticipate then? Why not just say, oh, scholars got it wrong, Jesus wasn't born in that year, Jesus was actually born a few years earlier. All right, we've recounted and it's now the year 1000. That would have been a much easier lie.
Yeah, rather than claiming relatively modern centuries never existed and assuming technology's just improved by 300 years overnight. It's a sad state of the world that I've heard weirder conspiracy theories much more recently.
Yes.
But much more... He's not won me over just yet, but I'm open-minded.
You're open-minded about it being the year 1724.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a nice classic ring to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Powdered wigs could be coming back into fashion.
Typhoid.
Yeah, that too.
Rampant syphilis.
Yeah. What's weird though, I was just thinking back to it, I'm pretty sure there was some fairly major events happened in those years. I'm pretty sure the Viking sack of Paris happened during the missing years, which was a fairly big thing, which led to the entire the foundation of the Normans was a direct result, who then obviously invaded England in 1066. So it's you're basically it's not I know he's saying oh, there wasn't much archaeological evidence and stuff, and I guess because literacy rates and stuff dropped off a bit around that time, or was basically confined to monks, but it's still it's not like nothing happened during those years. Like, people know. Like, yeah.
I don't know. Now you say it, it does smack of, fan fiction where, really Vikings sacking Paris.
Oh,
that seems far-fetched.
That seems a bit far-fetched. Actually, when you say it, though, let's not get, like, a bit too, like, as if we're a bit of a psychedelic podcast. But how do you know anything happened? What if this is all a conspiracy? I mean, people say. I mean, as far as I can tell, history, anything that happened before I was born, I mean, how I've only got other people's word to take.
That's very Buddhist of you, that the only conceivable universe is in front of you and everything else is
an illusion.
I mean, what would be really meta is if you were the conspiracy theorist and there isn't this German historian at all and you've made this up to posit your own theories.
That could also happen. It didn't, but it could.
Yeah. I'm not convinced.
Well, anyway, at least it would mean that we could stop complaining about, like, 2020 and 2021 because, we just complained about 1721 instead. Oh, sorry, 1723.
1723, am I right, guys?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, what are you?
Oh, God, roll on 1724, eh?
Hey. And on that note, let's roll on to your second topic.
Okay, cool.
I was quite proud of that segue. I've ruined it now by talking about it, but,
But I mean, who else is going to give you credit for a great segue?
Not you.
Damn straight. Well, for my second topic, I was going to talk about something that happened between 1864 and 1889, but now I'm just not sure. What's the time you felt most unjustly punished? Or singled out, or...
Well, I mean, I feel like I could probably think of some others if I really thought to it, but the one instance immediately sprung to mind when I was sat in between you and our, our good friend, our mutual doctor friend, Johnny, when we were at school, and you and he were having a conversation, and I was sat in the middle, and I got sent out. Oh, actually, no, I have another one from school, actually, an even worse one, which was the time that you told a joke in English, and the teacher made me drag and I laughed at it, and the teacher went absolutely mental at me and made me drag my desk out and work in the corridor, all just because I found you funny.
Well, for the first and last time.
Zero consequences.
Look, I'm not saying it is a race thing, but let's be honest, it was a pretty white school. Pretty damn white.
Oh, that's very true, actually.
Well, I can only apologise years later for being so hilarious that it disrupted my own education. So I asked that because I came across this thing, and it's like a sign inside a women's insane asylum in Ireland. And on it, it's got listed all the reasons for admission.
I take it this is historic.
So this is 1864 to 1889.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
And, it's a comedy podcast. I'm not making light of the fact that, a century and a half ago, essentially society saw women as, property. But there is something laughable about this list in terms of just it's ridiculous to even conceive of it now. So there are some genuine ones which you might think on medical grounds you could understand why someone would be admitted to an insane asylum. So brain fever.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, bloody fluxes.
That sounds worse.
So,
just imagine a doctor telling you got the bloody fluxes. You'd be like, that sounds bad, doc.
No need to swear.
That sounds really bad.
You've got to stop visiting doctors in Yorkshire. Oh, you've got the bloody flux, you have. You daft apeth. Fucking hell, you're fucking riddled with flux.
Why is he still swearing?
Doctor, please, it's a professional establishment. Oh, you're getting fucking pus everywhere.
No, fuck off.
Okay, so there's that. There's sort of scarlet fever. I don't know why necessarily you'd need to go to an insane asylum, but at least these are medical ailments. Carbonic acid gas, and then there are some that are completely contradictory. So laziness, which is pretty vague.
And also harsh.
studying hard. There's feebleness of intellect, but then
Did
there's
you say
also
studying hard was one?
Yep. Yeah, hard study is the reason it was given. Hard study, feebleness of intellect, but then also overaction of the mind, overstudy of religion, overtaxing mental powers. So basically, at that time, women could not win. If you were too smart, it was a sign of mental illness. If you weren't smart enough, it was a sign of laziness, and therefore mental, And then there are some that seems like so harsh. So, for example, greediness, and you think, okay, not really worth, sending someone to an asylum for. And then there are some that are just like so ludicrous. So there's like the vaguest term, female disease, women trouble, various vices. There's one that says...
Did you just say various vices?
Various vices.
How lazy was the doctor?
Yeah,
Or whether they were just like, just things. What is it though? There's just too much to mention, really. Just give an
gesturing
example.
vaguely at women.
There's
one that says time of life,
What?
which I think the woman has reached a certain age and must be punished.
How dare she?
Yeah, there's one that just says the war. It doesn't reference which war or how much he was involved. There's one that says fell from horse. And then there are some that are clearly not even her fault. So there's desertion by husband. Okay, so he's left. So what's this got to do with? There's marriage of son. I'm guessing the son married someone who they didn't approve of, so it reflected poorly on her. So I'll just run a few that fit all these various categories. Imaginary female trouble, which is so condescending. Jealousy and religion, masturbation and syphilis. That's all one. They're not two separate things. Masturbation for 30 years. I mean, don't think continuously. Tobacco and masturbation, classic combo. Politics, just a woman engaged in politics must be deranged.
Just be like, I'm not really a big fan of the trickle-down tax policies of the current government. Off you go.
Fever and loss of lawsuit. Those two don't seem compatible.
Loss of what, sorry?
Loss of lawsuit.
What does she mean?
Bad company, shit at parties, so you get sent to an asylum. Bad habits and political incitement. Bad whiskey.
Bad whiskey.
Bad whiskey. I don't know, made or sold. Yeah, or sold bad whiskey. What else have we got? Death of sons in war, and it's all right, she's grieving clearly. Yeah. Dissolute habits, domestic affliction, domestic trouble, dropsy, which turns out I looked up means clumsy. You drop a fucking vase and you go, well, asylum, love. Exposure and quackery, which is, I think, when you flash a duck. Fighting fire. Yeah, I said, the war. Just a vague war. Superstition, smallpox, snuff eating, gunshot wound.
You say superstition? But then, at the same time, if you question religion, which is essentially just codified superstitions, you go in. But if you're too superstitious, you also go in.
Yeah, they literally can't win. Rumour of husband murder. Not even proved.
Proof, just rumour.
Yeah, false confinement, which seems well, don't send them to an asylum then.
You've just done the same thing again.
So yeah, they're just a few off the list. And like I said, it's funny because
it's not happening now.
Well, there is
tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Well, yeah, I guess it's funny because it's laughable to think that was ever serious, reasons. But it was, and there was. If your father or husband wanted, do you remember there was an episode of Peep Show where they keep trying to get each other sanctioned for various minor irritations, and it's that sort of thing. It's it's over a period of 25 years in one particular asylum.
Yeah,
and it's I thought it was funny and sort of heartbreaking at the same time because you imagine these women just so little agency.
Yeah, well, there's literally nothing. there's no win condition from that. You know what I mean? Like, I know even like nowadays mental health and stuff, it's like hard to prove you're not crazy. I can't remember what year it was. It was relatively recently, but honestly could have been any time in the 20th century. It can't. This is really vague, but somebody checked themselves into a mental home to see how, if you could ever actually persuade to like check out, and they didn't have any diagnosed issues. But then once you're in there, everything you do proves that you know, if you tell the doctor that you're not crazy, that's just proof that you're crazy.
Isn't that the plot of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I thought he was crazy in that.
Or was he? I thought at first he was pretending to be, and then ended up going genuinely crazy.
But it was like I think they wrote a letter and stuff like about, you know, like they had a plan to get themselves out so they could write about it. Either way, though, like at least now, like let's say that was relatively recently, but I can't remember when. And you still have that issue. And then back then, like, you know, how do you even? I assume there's no appeal to that. It's just, and then in a lot of cases, it just sounds like they didn't have anybody to sort of like. Because obviously back then, like women were sort of restricted from jobs and stuff like that. So it's like you can't get a job, and if your husband dies in the war, there's sort of just like, well, fuck her then.
Or if you have a daughter that you're not able to marry off or doesn't find a husband, you know, then you pick any reason basically, you know, and it's it's just. I think part of it, you know, I love the wording of some of them. Just the war, it's so
catch-all.
Yeah, broad. You know, gesturing broadly at, well, you know. I mean, to be fair, the war.
Yeah, the war. I mean, you can't dispute it.
I'll probably edit that sneeze out. So that's the end of my second topic, Chris. Why don't you close us out? I think I had am I having a stroke? Chris, why don't you close us out with your second topic?
There we go. It sounded like the vinyl was a bit off kilter then. Well, alright. Well, we've dealt with conspiracy theories and stuff, which again, on brand. So now, time to talk about something uncontroversial and contentious. The Falklands War.
Okay.
No, but specifically a man called Terry Peck, who was basically a bit of a mad lad. Just for context, just because obviously the Falklands War sort of seared into British public consciousness, but you know, for our international listeners, they might not be so up on it. So basically what happened was, there's an island off the coast, I say off the coast of Argentina, it's still like way off the coast of Argentina, called, well, a bunch of islands called the Falklands, which have been owned by the British ever since the British got there and said, these are ours now. Basically, I mean, we won't get into it because there's strong feelings, but essentially, there was never any real reason, you know, there's no real reason that they would be Argentine because they've been British longer than Argentina's been a country. There were no natives there in the first place. It's one of the few colonial things without really that didn't have a history of bloodshed.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware.
Rarely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the British Empire has a lot of things you can throw at it, you know, in terms of horrific misdeeds. Weirdly, the taking of the Falkland Islands, I think, isn't actually one of them. But anyway, I digress. So Argentina, but because they're close to Argentina, Argentina thinks they have a claim to them, and they call them the Las Malvinas. It's a bit of a Taiwan situation, you know, China-Taiwan, where China claims Taiwan officially and just sort of acts like it's a breakaway province. I think Argentina classes the Las Malvinas as its territory that it just doesn't own yet. But they tried to press that claim in the 1980s when they were under a military, I think it was a military dictatorship at the time. They tried to press their claims, invaded the Falkland Islands, and then Britain launched counter-invasion and took them back. So that's a brief history of the Falklands War. I say, I'm sure there might be some angry Argentinians in there saying that, you know, listen to that, saying that they should be British, and there might be some angry Brits out there saying I didn't make a strong enough claim for them being British. We're not here for that. Because we're here to talk to you about shenanigans, which are always fun. So, Terry Peck was a native let's say, again, native Falkland Islander, born on the island and all that. Because, also, just for context, there is fuck all on the Falkland Islands. I think there's some penguins in one bit of it. They farm sheep, and honestly, I think that's about it until they discovered that there might be oil nearby. But even then, I don't think they actually, have dug it up yet. I think there might be some nearby.
It's also very windy there, isn't it? Is that where it's really hard to grow trees?
A bleak. Yeah, exactly. There's no trees very few trees and stuff on the island. It's just a bleak, windswept bunch of rocks in the sea, which makes it really weird that it's so, contested. I don't know why anybody... Again, they found that there might be oil nearby, which would make them valuable. But apart from that, I don't know why anybody really cares who owns them. They seem fairly, miserable.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose other than the fact that
bits of rock.
The inhabitants consider themselves British, then there's no reason for us to really...
still be there. So anyway, Terry Peck, he was, like I say, he was born there, grew up there. So he was born in 1938. So in 1966, when he was will that make him, 18? Have I done that right? Yes. No, I haven't, have I? 28. 28, bloody hell, I'm bad at maths.
Engineer.
I know, I'm just really bad at...
basic maths. It's not the right kind of maths, actually.
So, when he was 28 years old, so 1966, so this is 20 years before the Falklands War proper, there was still, like I say, Argentina is considered the Falklands like a breakaway province and all that. And a bunch of Argentinian nationalists hijacked a plane and then landed on the island as part of they basically were trying to raise the argument that it should be Argentina or whatever. The problem with their glorious master plan was that at the time the Falklands didn't have an airport. You could only get there by boat, which meant they basically just had to crash land this plane into a field, which again isn't the ideal way your hijacking goes. If it's so then basically a bunch of Falkland Islanders, they saw a plane crash, so naturally, they just ran to help thinking it was and then they ended up being taken hostage. So including Terry Peck. Obviously then the Island Defence Force and the police turned up and, it was a standoff. But Terry Peck managed to escape the hijackers by hiding. A priest was brought over to help mediate and all that. And Terry managed to hide under his robes and make an escape. Whilst that was
from the school of Scooby-Doo sort of
Scooby-Doo. Yeah. It does make me wonder either how short was Terry or how tall was this priest that a grown man could hide in his robes.
Yeah, the man's like, look, we'll send out the 40-foot high diplomatic priest.
So anyway, so that was the first one. Then apparently it all managed, the guys eventually surrendered and sent back to Argentina. Blah, blah, blah. But, so that's shenanigan number one. Then, 20 years later, so that was fun and game shenanigans, still involving a plane crash and terrorism, but, relative shenanigans. Yeah. 20 years later, the Falklands War kicks off. Terry was... here's some maths now, but, he was 28 when that happened, so obviously 20 years later, he's, late 40s. The Falklands War kicks off, and he was working for the police. The Argentinians invaded the Falklands, and then it was a counter-invasion, because basically they were near enough undefended at the time. I think there was a handful of British soldiers stationed on the island, but they weren't really in any position to do anything. So for a while, the islands were just under Argentinian control. But Terry decided that he was going to be a one-man resistance to this. So he used to walk around the town that was the main town, Stanley. And he had a disguised telephoto lens and a camera, but that he disguised as a length of drain pipe. And he used to just wander around the town, taking pictures and then just pretending he was... I don't know, taking his drain pipe for a walk. I don't know. It seems like the Argentinians weren't the best at this whole... Where are you taking that drain pipe?
For a walk?
Taking it for a walk. British or strange. Well, I will let it pass. I don't know. That's a terrible Argentinian accent.
I spent quite a lot of time in France, actually. My accent's all over the place.
But yeah, he was able to use these photos of the, the defences and stuff of the town, and he was able to smuggle them out, which ended up being sent back to, British forces. So then the Argentinians, though, they decided they were going to arrest him because they'd
They've looked closer at his drain pipe.
Yeah, somebody else overheard, because I think the Argentinians, they using the police forcibly, to like the local police against the public and stuff like that, or trying to. Oh yeah, that was it. So they were using the police to sort of act as mediators, try and diffuse the situation, between the local, sort of as a
sort of peacekeeping force. Yeah.
So one of the guys, though, he overheard that they were talking about getting rid of, arresting Terry. So he warned him. So Terry borrowed a motorbike. I don't know where from, and fled the town, and then stopped at a farmhouse. He knew the people, where there was a party celebrating the Queen's birthday.
Of course, there was.
And because of
I
this,
like that it's, the town's been invaded. You can probably see the farmhouse from Stanley. It's not a huge place. Yeah. You can probably see the balloons in the window.
Well, that's it. Apparently, though, the party was so loud that they didn't hear the Argentinian helicopter approaching, searching for him. And then the house, and they're surrounded by soldiers. But luckily, he just locked himself in the toilet. And the Argentinians searched the house, couldn't get in the toilet, and were just like, well, I guess nobody's in here. Left him to it.
I guess nothing is behind this locked door but the sound of running water.
Guess you just gotta say, I've got the shits, and they'll be like, well, it'd be rude to interrupt a man with the shits.
on the Queen's birthday of all days.
So then he fled again, and then camped in a remote part of the island for 10 days.
Also, you could probably still see his campfire from Stanley, but sure.
Well, apparently he didn't. He, for most of the time, he actually refused to use a fire because he was, for that exact reason. Then he apparently decided to risk it, made a hot meal, and then spilt it all over the floor. It was like, for fuck's sake. It was apparently, I quote, the lowest point of his escape, and he was demoralised from it.
Not hiding in the shitter from the police.
Yeah. But then then eventually he managed to meet up with some other. Again, everyone's at a different farm. They're all just, again, there's nothing else there. So he just moved for another farmhouse. And there were some Royal Marines who had hidden some weapons. So they recovered those. Yeah, and then when the Marines and the parachute regiment landed on the Falkland Islands as the counter-invasion, he went and met them to give as much information as he could to them. And then he acted as a guide for the parachute regiment, because obviously he was the local expert.
Although most of his advice was like, lads, don't spill your beans.
Well, the thing is, though, as well, this is, like I say, he's a bit of a lad. The parachute regiment, for people who don't know, essentially they're one of the most, badass formations in the British military. It's basically them and the Marines, who again were the two that were sent to the other side of the world to re-invade it. They have incredible fitness standards. And so at this, he was, I quote here, 43, because this was all happening in 82. So he was way older than all these, like I say, you got a bunch of young men in the mid-20s mostly, who are all absolutely peak fitness.
Yeah.
And then he's got to go and
guide them.
Guide them and keep up with them and all that. So, again, it's quite impressive.
See, he sounds like the sort of guy who'd probably be smoking a fag while, jogging alongside him.
Yeah, exactly. And then he even, helped them. I say helped them. There was even, gunfights and battles. He was present at the Battle of Mount Longdon. He ended up, participated. Apparently carried a wounded soldier on his back down to the...
I'm also picturing it flat cap, wellies, bomber jacket.
It sounds like the Yorkshire, Yorkshire doctor. Also, there's a great quote here. Terry remained with the battalion, existing on toffees and food scavenged from Argentine trenches. Just existing on toffees, just such a whimsical,
interlaced with, murder. Well, not murder, but, killing at least.
Yeah, death and... yeah. Death and destruction.
See, again, that picture of, the genteel farmer with a pocket full of Werther's Originals.
Yeah, so he actually won he was awarded an MBE for this, and honorary position in the parachute regiment.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, he left the islands for a bit, then went back to the Falklands to join the government, failed, then tried again, won, so he became part of the Falklands government. And then it sounds like he didn't like Thatcher for lack of aid for the islands, and then also for allowing Argentinians to visit the graves of their war dead, which is very not lad behaviour. We do,
that's
let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, that's crossed the line over shenanigans now.
Yeah, but then apparently his son became a famous artist, or well, as famous as artists are these days, I guess. And his work on the Falklands War, reflecting on the sufferings of individual soldiers, particularly Argentine conscripts. So again, his son's art ended up being exhibited in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. And his dad, Terry, gave his support and ended up, through James, befriended an Argentinian veteran of the Falklands War, and they were able to, realise that they became friends, and sort of, it's sort of like, I say, at one point he was, don't even let the Argentinians visit their graves, and then eventually they sort of brought it together.
Yeah, sort of humanised both sides, yeah.
Yeah, and so there we go. Especially because, like I say, they were conscripts, these guys. So, I mean, imagine that. You don't even have a choice. You just get sent to invade these shitty islands in the middle of the South Atlantic, only to then lose. It's a pretty raw deal.
Yeah, it's not great.
So there we go. And then and that was the life of Terry Peck, Falkland's most extravagant man. And so with that, we have, as promised, delivered you some genuine facts from around the world. I mean, we did cover quite a range there. We've got cutting-edge science, history, fake history. Covered all the bases. I feel like, whilst we obviously do love all our listeners, we are very aware that there's not that many of you. But we still appreciate you, and that's why we keep doing this show, and for our own amusement. But, when we eventually do strike it big, I feel like this show has the making of a travel log. Me and you, we could, let's get some sweet BBC money or something, or, I don't know, BBC free money, I guess. It's probably the best we could hope for. But,
I'll take it.
Today we've done, Falklands, China, Holy Roman Empire, so like Germany or whatever, and Ireland. We could do all these bits, live from each area for no reason. Just rack up the mileage. But we could,
I don't
get free holiday places. Come on, it's got legs. This idea has legs, and you know it.
Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely on board, and I'll travel to you wherever as soon as we're able to travel anywhere other than a 5-mile radius around our house. I don't know what doing it on location brings extra, particularly if it's an audio podcast.
But what does it bring to literally any show? It's like these science shows with Brian Cox where he's like, I'm going to be talking about Jupiter, and to do that, I'm talking from the top of a mountain in Africa.
Oh, no, you spoke way too fast then. It's gotta be, I'm talking to you from a great mountain in South Africa.
Unless he did it from location on Saturn or something. His show, isn't actually, it doesn't need to be done anywhere other than a studio.
I'm here on Saturn.
Because he gets the budget to do it, so he does it.
But to be fair, he's like a rock star and an astrophysicist. We're two dicks. So
with a microphone, 2 dicks with a microphone. That's what makes a difference. It gives us legitimacy.
I mean, not to boast, but 2 microphones.
2 microphones
separated by a distance of about 40 miles.
So anyway, so subscribe to our Patreon so we can do this on location for no reason. Or sponsor us, alternatively. That was a bit of a hastily added shill for ourselves. Yeah, no, maybe at some point we should do something more with the Patreon. Listen here, watch this space.
Essentially at this point, we're just having a sort of business meeting live on the podcast. I have no idea what we have to offer us. At the minute, our only tier is £1 a month, in which we guarantee you nothing extra in return. And that is about the limits of what I can offer the listeners. I can sort of draw, I can sort of play the guitar. I recently bought a kalimba, but I'm not very good at it.
Bought a what, sorry?
A kalimba. It's like
What's a kalimba?
It's like a portable.
Here's a bonus fact for you listeners.
It's like a portable xylophone. Actually, you know what? Hang on. Talk amongst
All
yourselves.
xylophones are portable.
Okay, but more portable than most. You know what? I'm currently
Does it have like a strap? Is it like a keytar but with a xylophone?
No, it's you can hold it in your hands. I'm currently unwrapping my kalimba. Hang on.
I was going to say, listen here, wait until we get the new kalimba Cooking with Grief intro music. Well, that was lovely and soothing. Oh, well, here's what we can promise, listeners. New jingles at some point, maybe. I say promise. Promise is a strong word. Here's what we can vaguely suggest might happen.
Yeah. Hey, did you like them 8 notes?
Well, there's 8 more where they came from.
There's actually not.
Damn it.
We're
already overpromising what we can deliver. Oh, God.
But I could retune it, and then you'd have different 8 notes.
There you go. All right. And on that note... I was hoping you'd play a note then.
I'll put it down again. Hang on, say it again. Say it again.
You ready?
Yeah.
And on that note...
That was a D.
It's time for us to leave you.
I gave the listeners the D.
Yeah, well, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Thank you. And we hope you enjoyed this episode enough to join us next time. As always, you can, in the meantime, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at Cooking with Grief, with no G on cooking. And also, please, I don't know, I sound kind of German then. Und also,
und auch, may you leave us a subscription und a comment. That's horribly offensive. I can actually speak German, and yet I still went for, camp.
Went for the Peter Sellers version.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please leave us a review on iTunes, because that really helps the podcast to grow. And as always, we appreciate your time. See you next time.
Adios.
Bye. That sounds like an airport departure sound.
Yeah, if it was 2 notes, hang on.
Well, Cooking with Grief, please make its way to the departure gate. Your flight is now leaving.
Please do not leave any bags unattended, or they will be destroyed.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris.
I'm Beth.
And I'm Matt.
Join us every Wednesday for Wasting Time, our podcast where we talk about pop culture, life, and our favorite things.
From the movies we love to the TV shows we're obsessed with.
And from politics to parenting to whatever else is on our mind.
Give us a listen each Wednesday and then find us on Facebook and Twitter to tell us what you're loving.
We're part of the Big Heads Media Group, and we can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever else you find your podcasts. Come waste some time with us.